Hey, how you
Johnny,
doing?
how are you, mate?
Great to see you, bro. That beard is looking just
It's
epic.
it's it's getting there, mate. It's getting there. It's growing nicely, growing
I
nicely.
love the I love the white wisdom colors you got there.
I've got that wise face, the wise face beard. All right, Johnny, why don't you just tell the guys watching what you're all about and where you're from?
Sure. So, what I'm all about. So, the movement I'm a part of, in the Hearts of Men, we take men through a journey to look at their shadows and a part of them that holds them back, and we help them embody that. And that can be the shadow component. Can be anything from like that they hate themselves, or they have aggression towards their father or their mother, or some other component in their life that's holding them back.
Yep.
And the lower self work we do with that is basically getting it out of your body, getting it out of your body system.
Hmm.
So it's like a safe space that we bring like between like 8 and 20 guys, and just go through that with a psychodynamic and like core energetic, bioenergetic work, and
Yep.
sometimes a bit of shamanism. But kind of that's where I've felt like men have needed this for quite some
Hmm.
time, and
Yep.
that's kind of where I ended up is doing this, and I love it. Like it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No, it's really good, and a lot of it's based around Carl Jung. A lot of stuff he does, isn't it?
Yeah, Jung's in there. There's like some Freud. There's some
Yep.
Reich. There's like Alexander Lowen and all
Yep.
there's a whole bunch of guys that were in that same cluster. So
Yeah.
they're all mates, and they all kind
Yep.
of made their own modalities from that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've dabbled in a little bit of Jungian type of stuff, and it's very eye-opening and enlightening.
Yes.
It's I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about just integration and integrating the shadow and the anima and animus, and it's helped me a
Mm,
lot with just my own journey from from where I've been to where I'm going.
mm.
And I guess that probably leads us into the kind of next type of questions that we have. So I've just got a few questions here that I want to run through. And as you know, like as I've told you before, Mr. Perfect is about ending isolation in men and the disconnectedness in men. So I'm just going to run through a few questions and just see if you can give us a bit of an insight from your perspective just around kind of these isolation type of topics. So the first one is why do we isolate? Why do men isolate?
Short answer, because of fear. Longer answer would be rejection, wanting to avoid feelings of being seen. Through conditioning of like when we grow up, like our emotions aren't nurtured the same way as the opposite sex, and I feel like we get rewarded for being like a silo, like a one man army. And I feel like when we need to start looking at de-isolating or becoming more um, in community and together, it's a challenge because we have to confront all these parts of us that we've wanted to keep separate or not acknowledge, like that shadow component.
Yep, no worries.
Mm.
Yeah, so and that is one thing that Jung does talk a lot about is the integration of the shadow and understanding kind of the 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 stuff inside yourself that's I guess the dark stuff you don't want to confront, and
Mm,
the things that kind of are giving you that anxiety and giving you that depression that kind of makes you not want to confront the world, and it makes you want to
totally,
kind of isolate and stay where you are.
totally. Yeah.
Um, so then I guess that leads on to the next question. So how do we get out of isolation?
I feel like it's a conscious choice,
Hmm.
where like you need to make a decision that you identify that you are isolated, and then making a choice to not be isolated.
Yep.
And that can take in the form of like coming to like a Mr. Perfect, like a barbecue or whatever it is, and just learning to be around other men, and then
Yep.
like armor plate by armor plate, just taking down that and speaking your truth. Like,
Mm.
I feel really sad today, or just connecting with those parts of you that you wouldn't normally talk to other people about.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think that's how you'd start to do it is by making that conscious choice that you don't want to be isolated anymore. Like you don't want to live in that sadness. You don't want to live by yourself. You don't want to be that silo anymore. You feel like you're missing something, and I feel like that starts on that journey.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is a big thing that we do see with a lot of guys. They'll come along, and the first or second time they turn up, they're quite quiet and don't
Mm,
really engage much, and then they'll just all of a sudden come out, oh yeah, this story happened to me, and this story, and then you can see it unraveling, and they feel free. They feel the freedom of getting that burden off their chest.
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a really good feeling to watch that as a host of the barbecues. Like, you see some guy and you're like, oh, this guy's been a bit quiet the last couple of times, and the next thing he's just, oh yeah, well, this happened to me and that happened to me, and the guys there are just totally accepting and just like, yeah, mate, that's shocking. If you need anything, we're here for you to help. And
Mm,
that's what makes it a really good movement, is people do get that when they do turn up. There's no, like, other meetups type of things that I've been to. You've kind of got to prove that you're cool and prove yourself and fit in. Whereas there's no judgment. You come along, and then people just, you go, oh yeah, shit's hit the fan, everything's going bad, and other people are like, oh mate, it happens, and it just gives that unraveling of things that are inside people, and then we can lead it onto that encouragement of to get them to get professional help, or talk with face the problem that it is, talk with their family, their partner, whatever it is, to resolve that problem. And that really kind of really works. The next thing I wanted to look at was with the Carl Jung stuff that you look at, and that is the individuation versus isolation. So Carl Jung. So basically, how do you get your individuality back after isolation, type of thing?
Yeah, I feel it's a process of acknowledging that you're going to look at some stuff that you might not want to look at,
Mhm.
and start teasing apart the parts of you that you've been conditioned, and the parts of you that's really you, and then being okay with being you. So that could involve like just talking it out. Like, I feel like I want to do this, but like my mum and dad have always told me that I need to get a job, I need to do this, I need to do that.
Yep.
But that doesn't feel like it's me. Like, I feel like I just want to go and explore for a bit, do this, or start a charity, or start something else, or do something else in my life that
Mhm.
feels more me. And then the more
Yep.
you start doing that, the more that the individuation starts to crystallize.
Yeah.
It's a growing process. So there's pain coming out of the isolation, and there can also be constant pain individuating, because you might lose friends that
Mm.
you feel like don't serve you anymore, and then you'll also gain a lot of friends that are on your same path. And I think that's where you have the balance of like, what do you want out of life? And I think with that comes a lot of purpose and a lot of other things when you start to individuate.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we see that type of stuff happen with the people at the barbecues. They do, like, actually probably a good example of that. A girl I knew like from years ago. She became a doctor because her father was a doctor, her mother was a doctor. She became a doctor, and she hated it. She just didn't like it, and she made the decision that she wanted to be a school teacher. And so she had to, like, go back to uni and do all the training while she was a doctor, and then ended up becoming the school teacher, and was so much happier just doing what she wanted to do, not what she was told to do. And she copped so much flack from her family and so much flack from the people around her. And she had to go within, like, really deep within inside herself to uncover that this is what I want to do and this is where I'm moving. And even though it was going to upset her father and her mother and her family, she still made that decision. And also she's getting like a massive pay cut from doctor to teacher.
Yeah.
But that was what she wanted to do. And once she did it, she did her first year, and she said it was the greatest thing she's ever done. And she'd done 6 years of being a doctor and hated it. She just hated being around sick people, hated everything about it. She just was, because she wasn't following her purpose. She was following that purpose of, she wasn't being an individual to herself. She was following the purpose of her parents. And that is kind of,
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. The next thing I'll get onto is, so how do we decide what direction to go?
What's that in the context of, like, within
So I guess it's
individuation?
probably similar to that. So, like, let's just say you're coming to that fork in the road where you're like, I want to be a teacher or a doctor. What is it that you think that we should do to follow the direction of the purpose that we really want to follow?
I feel it's taking that first step, like whatever
Yep.
that looks like. I mean, it's your life and it's your experiment. And I feel like to not do the experiment, you're going to live in that discomfort of never knowing.
Yeah.
And if it end up going down that path and it's like, you know what, I didn't feel like I needed to do that. However, there may have been other lessons that you learned in going halfway down that path and then making the choice, you know what, teaching doesn't really suit me anymore. Doctor
Mm.
or some other kind of speciality within the doctor's field that is more orientated to what you feel is correct. But I feel
Mm.
like just taking that first step is you're setting that intention and that mindset that you're going to start individuating. You're going to start
Yeah.
being your own person.
Yeah. So not being followed by the crowd around you and the influences by society and family
Yeah.
and friends and that. You just want to serve your purpose and serve your calling.
Yeah, totally. And I think that the more like negative feedback you get from your typical peers, it usually means that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, you're upsetting this dynamic of safety of oh, you've done everything, you've been obedient, and now you're being disobedient, and it's upsetting the dynamic. And I think that's really important. It's also a good litmus to see, like, oh, you're actually on the correct path.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. And why do we lose our values and identity?
Right. I feel they're intertwined, and I'll go into a story. So for me, like, I was in the corporate world for quite a few years, almost just under 2 decades. And when I first started, I had a set of values,
Yep.
and I didn't realize there were values until I started to go against like aspects of my behavior. Where like in the corporate world, during an acquisition or a merger, I would take the side of someone that would need to work with someone to establish what they did to work out if that person's role could be automated or divvied up between other people. And for me, like, I wasn't able to be completely transparent with this person to say, hey, look, I'm actually sitting with you right now, not to help you do your job, but to actually understand your job so I can take it away from you.
Yeah.
And for me, like, even just thinking about it right now, it's like I can feel like this hole in my gut. And I thought that's my values in me. Like, I wanted to be transparent. Like, I want to tell them, hey, look, your role is one of these roles that could be made redundant, and I'm here to facilitate that. I wasn't allowed to say that. And I think in the corporate world, the more rewards I got for being like two-faced, it's essentially two-faced. My values started to like really like sink into like this kind of a negative space, and then my identity became that. So like I got the nickname the Smiling Assassin, and I love that. I love that name. Like, that was like, yeah, man, I'm the Smiling Assassin. So it changed my whole identity of like, no, I'm this guy who befriends people, and then before you know it, you're made redundant. So I think we lose our values and our identity based around what we get rewarded for, like what we feel like gives us this self-esteem boost. And that ties in with like how what masks we choose to wear in our personas and all that kind of stuff. And I felt we do it because it makes us feel good, makes us feel comfy, makes us feel safe and secure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then I guess that leads on to our next thing is, so why do we put our priorities and how do we put our priorities and values into perspective?
This is like the deeper inner work of where like you start looking at like it's almost like a spiritual journey inside of where you want to like leave your mark on humanity, like where you want to what legacy do you want to leave. And I feel like taking like a stock take of what your values are now, like what drives you, what gets you up in the morning, and then choosing whether or not these are your values, or have you inherited them from like your mum or dad? Have you inherited from like a religious upbringing or school, or the collective, the global collective at large, where it's like, is this me? Like, is this what I want to do? And then making a choice. And I think we as men, we can sometimes overload ourselves with how many values that we want to change at once. When we look at it and we go, man, you know what? I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I think it's acknowledging that you're setting an intention to be a better person, and just chipping away at it and being gentle with yourself as you do it, like just prioritizing which ones feel more in alignment with you.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've kind of started doing is just when an obstacle does come my way, when something does come my way, and it does seem too big, I just kind of just let it wash over. Like I just feel what it is, and I just let it go. I'm just like, all right, what is this? Why am I feeling this emotion? Why am I feeling this? And then I'm like, what is the logical side behind this, and what is the emotional side behind it? And then just kind of let it go. And like, is this going to matter tomorrow? Is this going to affect me in 6 months? Is this going to affect me? And then you sometimes just realize, look, it's not a big thing. I'm getting worked up over something that's not a big thing.
Yeah,
and
totally.
you just basically be like Fonzie and just be cool about it. And you just be like, and sometimes you go, all right, I have to do something about it. I have to actually have a talk with someone about this, or speak to someone, or reach out, or just do a deep dive and think about it. But then it does give you that clarity, just like kind of pausing and having that stillness in the moment to just reflect on what it actually is that you're actually feeling. Why am I feeling this? Sometimes it might just be because you're hungry or something. Like sometimes it might just be you're like, why am I getting upset about this? And you're like, oh, I haven't actually had anything to eat, or and so there can be a massive amount of different things that can cause these different emotions, which kind of give you these identity kind of complexes of how you make decisions and moving forward.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said like in the stillness, like when you feel like chaos or whatever it is, and you know what is this? Like, what am I feeling right now? Just being able to go, whatever technique that you use to become still and make a new decision.
Well, that's kind of a huge thing that I kind of embrace a bit of stoicism, and I kind of think like, all right, this is right now at this moment, I'm thinking this is a little bit silly. I'm going to think about this afternoon. I might write it down or something, and I'm going to reflect on this afternoon when I'm in a different state of mind, or after I might even talk to a bunch of friends about it. Like, oh, hey, this happened to me today. What do you think of this? And then get their perspective on it. And sometimes they'll just go, what are you talking about, mate? That's not even anything. And then you're like, kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess I was getting worked up over nothing. And it does give you that, just gives you that freeness and of just letting it wash over, just figuring out what it is, and then the anxiety goes away, or the energy of that goes away, and then next thing it's not even anything.
Totally.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, how to value something about yourself. So how do you think we should value things about ourselves? Sorry,
again,
above ourselves.
Like as in
So I guess if we see ourselves as this, we need to be valuing things that are greater than what we see as ourselves.
Right. Okay. I think this requires a lot of humility, and I feel like, and a lot of the men that I work with really struggle with being able to like break that humility barrier around, like just realizing that you are human, and that there are things that are bigger than you. Like there's not just, and I feel like I don't have any kids, so I think like for you, like having a kid would definitely feel like there's a rite of passage. So men that don't have kids, like being able to establish what this rite of passage is like, which for me I feel is like a big connection to like nature, a big connection to like spirit, or whatever nature and spirit looks like to you. And then once you start connecting to that, you realize that you're a very small cog in a very big engine. And there's a humility with that, like, and being able to like surrender to like you might not know, like you might feel like there's a pressure for you to know everything or have an answer for everything, and then surrendering that there are like when I look at the systems approach to things, where, and like in economics, where a lot of externalities really aren't explored. I feel like this is where the humility can come in, and you go, I don't know. I actually don't know what's going to happen. Like I don't really know. I feel like there's something else that's bigger than I am, and I'm going to surrender to that and just do what I can in my own energy, in my own whatever skill set that I have. How's that sound?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that having a kid it does give you that higher value, something that's above yourself. And with myself, looking after a little girl, a little 3-year-old girl, you just like that is the higher thing that you have to kind of orient towards. You've got to basically say, this is what I've got to put all my eggs in the basket of. It's another life, it's another human, and she's helpless, and you've got to give everything to her. So that's one thing that kind of with myself, and as you say, and like a lot of young guys, it's not until they have kids that they mature. Like they'll just
Yeah.
mature overnight. They'll basically have a kid, and then the next thing they're a dad, and like, oh, shit, I've got shit to do now, and that's where they do get that, I guess, that value, that higher purpose above themselves. And I kind of went down a bit of a path similar to the Elliot Hulse, the strongman, where he went through like a downward state in his life, a depression in his life, and then started, because he was at home, he was just embracing his daughters and the feminine around him, and then embracing that, as I think Jung calls it, the anima animus. Is it integration of anima animus? Something like that?
Yeah, let's go with yes, yeah.
Yeah, so just embracing that just made me just realize that, like, the vulnerability of the world and the vulnerability of everything around, and kind of puts so much into perspective just as who I am as a man and what my role is as a man and what I have to do. And it's massive eye opener. So it's kind of all my like, there's a Tool song H. The Tool song H talks all about that, about how letting go of the generational curses and putting your child before you, and that's where I think a lot of men do, like, that type of thing happens, and a lot of men that's where they have to come into that kind of realization. And we do see a lot of single dads and stuff like that at Mr. Perfect, and you can see them that they're stepping up to that, and they need that support, and that's what does make the community of Mr. Perfect good, with things like single dads and even just dads in general. Dads in general have to struggle with it as well, because you grow up and you become a man overnight as soon as that happens. You go from being a boy to being a man straight away. Okay, so we'll move on. Sorry.
There you go.
I was just going to go to the next question. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. So how do we become in charge of our existence to get out of isolations?
I feel like it's like, if you're with a partner, I think it's having that discussion. And if you're not with a partner, it's like, well, now I need to, like, make space in my life to create room for me to do this. So if it's like, if you choose to do it and you want to come to Mr. Perfect, it's like, well, setting those weekends aside where you can go, that time aside, and I feel like it's setting the intention and then creating the room for it. Because I feel like we can make ourselves really busy. Like the content that's available for men today to absorb, from like books to ebooks to like YouTube to all this stuff, we can really fill our time with stuff that we're looking for. I think, but when it comes to like getting out of the isolation and connecting with other men, it's really important to just like choose a tribe, find a tribe, and make time for it. And then everything just starts to fall into place. Like once that shell starts to come off, once you start peeling those onion layers off, it all starts to unfold, and you unlock as deep as you can go, and then you take it from there. But it cascades. So once you start it, it's like it almost becomes addictive. It's like, oh wow, I can speak my truth here. Like, all these men understand me. They've either had the same experience or more intense experience, and I can bond with that. Like, I can see myself in another man, and I think when you can do that, the whole concept of isolation really starts to like just fade away.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because that is similar to what happened with myself. Like, after my business failed, I kind of got into a deep depression, and a lot of my friends had moved away, and I didn't have many people to reach out to. And then just going along to this, and then even other kind of meetups and other outings, and just stripping that away and just getting out there and just meeting new people. And that's one thing that I do see as guys go through a crisis, or they're leading up to a crisis, whether it's a divorce or whether it's a business failure or someone dies in the family or something like that. And they just put the walls up around themselves. They just put on, like, as not stoicism, but the stoic masks, where they look like they're all stoic and have got everything under control, but it's just all hidden behind a mask. And you see a lot of men do that. It happens, and then instead of them dealing with it, they're just putting this blank face on. And that's a good thing when you do see the people come to Mr. Perfect, and the first couple of times they turn up and they're a little bit shy, a little bit quiet, and then third, fourth, fifth time they're talking. The next thing, you guys are going to the movies, and they're coming along to evenings we do, and getting involved in the chat groups and the Mr. Perfect community and that. And you just see them kind of start to unravel from this isolation to kind of, getting back out there and just being able to get back into a tribe. I think a lot of men just I think we're all connected with all our mates, but just not face to face. That's a big thing. Like I was talking with a friend today, and I was saying, yeah, all my friends, I talk to them all the time, but I just haven't seen them for like years. Like some of them haven't seen for years, and that's a thing. You need to get that face to face connection to strip away. You're just stripping away a lot more than kind of sharing memes with each other and mucking around and that kind of stuff that we do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that face-to-face connection is really important. Like being able to like see that expression on a man's face, and the heartbreak or whatever he's going through, or the stress or whatever it is. Like it makes it so much more human. It really knocks all those masks off.
It works both ways. It works both for whoever's still telling the story and the recipient, because we get a lot of guys and they'll come in and they'll go, like this one guy, he goes to me, he goes, oh man, I thought I had some problems. He goes, but these other guys, he goes, I feel so sorry for them. He goes, he said that a burden had just been lifted off him because these other guys, and he said, look, now he goes, oh yeah, I just kind of feel like I should hang out with them more and get them out of their shell and get them to help, and so he's there thinking, oh, I'm isolated, I don't have friends, this and that, and then you see some other guy who's like gone through some absolute catastrophe, and then he's like, all I can do is help this guy. He's like, and he just puts all his own problems aside to help some other guy who he sees that's in a dire need, and then he gets a release from that. He gets that release from that by basically helping out someone else, and he's like, he goes, I feel really good helping these other people, but he's like, my problems just aren't problems. He goes, and he said, and he was having a few problems with his parents, and he said that he just went and talked to them. He's just like, my problems aren't even problems. He's like, like petty fights and stuff. So he just went and talked to his parents, solved all these problems that he was having, and just because he came along and started talking with other guys who he was a bit just like shell shocked to like what they're going through. And these guys are like, he's saying, he was talking about one guy, how he's like, why is that guy so happy? He's so happy. And like, he tells his story, but he's still happy. He's like, and I'm like, mate, he wasn't like that a few weeks ago. He's kind of coming out. He's like, it's good to see. So that is a really good thing. Like just, when you see people get out of that isolation and start to take charge of who they are and why they exist and their purpose and that type of stuff in life.
And that's a great example of like realizing that there's something bigger than what you are and starting to individuate. So like, it feels good for him to do this, and he's also believing that there's something bigger than his cocoon in his world. And once you start giving from that place, it can really start to recharge you. So it's a beautiful example of both of those.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what he did. He's always like messaging the guys, and he's like, "Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. Hey, blah blah blah," and just getting everyone on board and getting them to help. He's always helping out, that kind of stuff. So it's a really good thing to see when you see that kind of stuff happen. You're seeing it happen through so many different levels and so many different layers. You're seeing one guy, he's dealing with something, but then he gets over it, and then another guy's helping other guys to get over it, and then you just kind of get this snowball effect, and it's really good to see.
Warms the heart. It's good stuff.
It does. Yeah, it's gives you that tickles. All right, Johnny. Well, that was the last question. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this or anything like that?
I think just be brave and just be courageous. Like just acknowledge that at some point, like you can't do it alone. Like I think we all feel like we can do it alone, and once you start to realize that there's communities of men out there that just want to help, listen to you, or give you feedback, or whatever it is, there's a lot out there that you can tap into. So wherever you're at, like reach out, because
definitely. And how can people get in contact with you, John?
Right now it's through a Facebook page, Hearts of Men, or jump on Instagram, John Kai Herbert, at John Kai Herbert. Send me a message. We're actually moving.
Chuck your things down in the comments below, so people can contact you if you want.
We're also moving into bringing women into our work as well. So we've got a base load of men, and now we're going to bring women into the work as well. So and when they both come together, like you see both sides of the story, it's super powerful. Yeah. Thanks, Trent.
It sounds good. I'm going to come along to one of your things. I was going to come to one a couple of weeks ago, and I was going to do it, and then the metro wasn't going. The metro's always not working.
Right.
In Castle. And I was just like, oh, not this metro again. So didn't end up making it. But next time the metro is running, I'll head in and I'll come and see you guys.
Awesome. I'd love to see you there, bro.
I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. All right, mate. Thanks for your time, and thanks for you guys who have been watching. And we'll talk to you on the next one.
Peace.
Take it easy.